My name is Sarah Delaney, and I'm 34 years old. If you had asked me a year ago what the worst sound in the world was, I would have said the whine of a failing engine or the crack of metal under stress. I was wrong. The worst sound in the world is silence, the kind that settles into a marriage right before it dies. Before everything went to hell, my life was simple in the best way. I ran Delaney Customs, a classic car restoration shop I built from nothing. I spent my days with engines older than me, metal that needed patience, and hands that didn't shake. Cars were honest. They responded to effort, care, consistency. People, not so much. I learned the trade from my dad. He used to say, well, an engine won't lie to you, kid. People will. I laughed at that when I was young. I'm not laughing anymore. My husband at the time was Marcus, 32, a physical therapist with kind eyes and a habit of believing the best in everyone. We'd been together 8 years, married 5. Solid, stable, comfortable, or so I thought. And then came Lila. She and Marcus had been best friends since high school. Recently divorced, emotionally raw, constantly needing support. She moved to our city 3 years ago and immediately clung to Marcus like a lifeline. At first, I didn't mind. I'm not the jealous type. I gave her a chance, probably more chances than she deserved. There were red flags, but I treated them like inconveniences instead of warnings. The first time she gave me that look, sharp, assessing, territorial, I brushed it off. The time she made a joke about Marcus finally upgrading his taste in women, I swallowed the sting. The night she showed up at our place with dinner uninvited and planted herself between us on the couch, I forced a smile. Marcus was oblivious to her obsession, or maybe he chose to be. She was constantly around, constantly texting, constantly interrupting. At some point, it felt like I was sharing my marriage with her, except she wasn't sharing anything. She wanted it all. But Marcus didn't see it. He never saw her calculated little digs at my work, the way she always needed him at the exact moment he and I made plans, or how she'd pull him aside to whisper about her problems, as if I wasn't standing right there. She was always crying, always overwhelmed, always desperate for Marcus's attention. He kept saying she was fragile. I kept saying she was manipulative. Guess who he believed? Still, I tried to be patient, understanding, mature, all the things a good wife is supposed to be. The night that should have opened my eyes was a night out at an Italian restaurant. Marcus went to take a call. Lila leaned in, her voice sweet as venom. You know, Marcus needs someone who actually makes time for him. That one cut, she knew exactly where to aim. I stared at her. I do make time. She smiled like she knew something I didn't. Sure, she said softly, when you're not busy with your little projects. Little projects. The restoration shop I built with my own hands. My life's work. My pride. I should have stood up then. I should have confronted her. I should have told Marcus everything. But I stayed quiet. I chose peace, and that was my mistake. 6 months passed, and Lila grew bolder. She'd show up uninvited. She'd pout when Marcus didn't answer her texts immediately. She'd guilt-trip him into choosing her over me. The night everything changed, my day had actually been good. I spent hours working on my personal project, a 71 Challenger I'd poured years into. Everything felt steady. Normal. I drove home tired but content. I opened the front door expecting the smell of dinner or the sound of Marcus humming while he cooked. Instead, I found him sitting at the dining table, hands clasped, face pale. He didn't greet me. He didn't smile. He didn't move. My stomach tightened. Marcus? I asked. He looked up at me, and his eyes were full of something I'd never seen before. Cold, distant, wounded. We need to talk, he said. My heart dropped. What's going on? He took a shaky breath. Lila told me what you did. Those words didn't make sense at first. They floated in the air, heavy and wrong. What I did? He stood, voice trembling. She told me you made a move on her. Everything inside me went still. A slow, icy numbness wrapped around my ribs. What? I whispered. Marcus, that's not true. Why would she? She showed me the messages, he snapped. I froze. Messages? She said you texted her from a different number. She showed me screenshots. Screenshots, fake messages, a different number. It hit me all at once. I knew exactly what she had done, and I knew in that moment that everything I had built, my marriage, my home, my trust, was no longer mine. Marcus, I said softly, she's lying. But he'd already made up his mind. He looked at me like a stranger, and I realized something terrifying. Lila wasn't trying to ruin my reputation. She was trying to replace me. And Marcus was letting her. Marcus didn't shout. He didn't rage. Somehow that would have been easier. Instead, he just looked broken, like he had already mourned something, and I was the last to know it had died. Sarah, he said, just admit it. Please, don't make this uglier. My pulse throbbed painfully in my throat. There's nothing to admit. I didn't text her. I didn't touch her. I didn't do anything. He shook his head slowly, as if I were a stubborn child refusing the truth. She showed me everything, he whispered. The messages, the timestamps. You told her you were bored and wanted her to come over while I was working late. She said you put your hand on her leg. I stared at him, stunned. Marcus, that never happened. She said you begged her not to tell me. A humorless laugh escaped my mouth, sharp, painful. Marcus, listen to yourself. Why would I do any of that? Why would I? Because maybe you were lonely, he said quietly. Maybe you made a mistake. I felt something inside me snap. Not anger, not yet, but disbelief so deep it felt like grief. Check my phone, I said. Right now. Check my messages. Check the history. It doesn't matter, he said. Check the Ring camera, I pleaded. It records everything. It would have shown her coming over. Maybe you deleted it. Marcus, I was at the shop working on the Challenger that entire night. Call my team. They'll tell you. I'm not dragging other people into this. Check my call logs. I said it doesn't matter, he barked suddenly, slamming his fist against the table. I flinched. He closed his eyes immediately, ashamed of himself, but not enough to reconsider anything. Not enough to believe me. He backed away from me, rubbing the bridge of his nose like he was the one in pain. She wouldn't lie to me, he said quietly. Those 6 words told me everything. She has no reason, he added. Oh, she had reasons. She had enough reasons to fill a book, reasons she'd been collecting for years. But he didn't want to hear that. Where's your proof? I asked softly. He swallowed hard. She said she was too emotional to send the messages again. But I saw them. You saw screenshots on her phone, I asked. Screenshots she could have created, forged, edited? His jaw tightened. She wouldn't do that. Marcus, you haven't seen her for who she really is, but I have. Don't do that, he whispered. Don't turn this on her. I stared at him. The man I loved. The man who promised to stand by me. And I realized he wasn't standing by anyone. He was choosing the easier pain, the version where he was the victim, not the fool. Marcus, why are you so ready to believe her over me? He didn't answer, because he didn't have one. Or maybe he did, he'd just never say it out loud. Because Lila had been in his ear for months. Because he trusted her more. Because he was already halfway out of our marriage and didn't know it. When he finally spoke again, his voice was icy. I need you to leave tonight. I blinked. Leave? Marcus, this is my house too. If you don't, I'll call the police, he said. And that was it. The knife. The turn. The moment love died. He wouldn't look at me. He just repeated, please go. I could have fought. I could have screamed. I could have stayed and made a scene. But I knew something he didn't. People only believe the truth when they want to. And he didn't want to. So I packed a bag. Not much. Some clothes, my toothbrush, my laptop. I paused in the driveway, hands shaking, staring back at the house I'd helped renovate, the house I'd planned a future in. It didn't feel like mine anymore. It didn't feel like home. I got in my truck and drove, not sure where, not sure what came next, just sure that I was leaving a life that had already decided it didn't want me. I ended up at Mason's apartment across town. He opened the door, took one look at me, and didn't ask for explanations. He just stepped aside, pulled me into a hug, and said, "Tell me who I have to beat up." I cried, not because of Marcus, but because of the whiplash of losing everything in one night. Later, after I calmed down, I told Mason the whole story. Every detail, every lie, every accusation. He listened quietly, jaw clenched, so tightly I thought his teeth might crack. That woman is obsessed with him, Mason said. I've seen it for years. She's always hovering, always inserting herself. And Marcus, he's blind. I know, I whispered. Sarah, this isn't just messy, he said. This is dangerous. She didn't just accuse you. She fabricated an entire story. I nodded. And Marcus believes her? He asked. I didn't answer. The answer was obvious. He let out a long, slow breath. Then you need a lawyer, immediately. I stared at him. You think it's really that serious? Sarah, he said softly, she accused you of making an advance. If she escalates this, if she claims something worse, you could lose everything. Legally, financially, publicly. I felt the room tilt. I didn't do anything. I know, he said, but truth doesn't matter if someone loud enough is lying. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake on Mason's couch, staring at the dark ceiling, replaying every moment with Lila, every ignored red flag, every time Marcus chose her comfort over my well-being. And I realized something terrifying. Lila wasn't finished. She had taken my marriage. She wasn't done until she took everything. For the first time in years, I woke up without the familiar sound of Marcus grinding coffee beans in the kitchen. No soft music, no footsteps moving around the house, just the quiet hum of Mason's old ceiling fan, and the hollow ache of knowing everything in my life had changed overnight. I sat up on the couch, blanket pooled around my waist, head pounding from the kind of crying that wrings you out like a rag. My phone buzzed. For a split second, I hoped, stupidly, that it was Marcus, that he'd realize the obvious, that he'd apologize, that he'd question Lila. It wasn't him. It was a message from my lawyer friend who owed Mason a favor. Call me. You need representation ASAP. I didn't hesitate. I met with attorney Vincent Hale that afternoon, a calm, razor-sharp man in his mid-40s, the kind of person who didn't flinch even when you dropped a bomb in his lap. He listened silently as I explained everything. Lila's sudden accusation, the fake screenshots, Marcus refusing every piece of real evidence I offered, the threat of calling the police if I didn't leave. By the time I finished, Vincent was leaning back in his chair with a look of absolute certainty. This, he said, is a textbook case of manipulation and emotional coercion. She's been grooming the situation for months. Tell that to Marcus, I muttered. I'm not interested in convincing your husband of anything, Vincent replied calmly. I'm interested in protecting you. It was the first time all day I felt the ground steady beneath my feet. What do I do? I asked. 3 things, he said. Document, distance, divorce. The word hit me in the chest like a sledgehammer. Divorce? I whispered. Already? You said he threatened to call the police on you in your own home, Vincent said. He believes a woman who fabricated evidence over his own wife. That's not a man who intends to give you the benefit of the doubt, or safety. I swallowed hard. He chose her version of reality, Vincent continued. The only way forward is to protect yourself legally and financially. I nodded slowly. Not because I was ready, but because denial wasn't protecting me anymore. It was drowning me. Let's start with the evidence, he said. When I returned to Mason's apartment, I sat cross-legged on the floor with my laptop, my phone, and a growing file of screenshots, logs, and time-stamped data. I pulled up my message history with Lila. Almost nothing there. Group messages, logistics about meeting up, occasional updates about Marcus's schedule. Nothing remotely inappropriate. I downloaded my call logs, checked my GPS history, pulled my shop's security footage of the night she claimed I invited her over. I was physically in the shop until almost 11 p.m. I sent it all to Vincent. Next, I opened the Ring doorbell footage from the entire week Lila claimed she came over. No visits, not one. I felt hollow, relieved, but hollow. Because I knew none of this would matter to Marcus. He didn't want evidence. He wanted something to blame. He wanted someone to blame. And I was the easiest someone. For the next week, I lived in 2 worlds. At the shop, I buried myself in my work. Torque, specs, polish compounds, carburetor rebuilds, things that made sense, things that didn't lie. Danny and Chris noticed that something was wrong but didn't pry. They just worked beside me silently, giving me the kind of space only people who understand sorrow can give. The '67 Mustang needed new leather upholstery. The Nova needed rust repair. My Challenger needed hours of love and sanding and polishing. It grounded me. At Mason's, I answered emails from Vincent, ignored every message from Marcus's family, and opened new ones from Marcus himself, short, clipped lines that made my stomach twist. Call me. We need to talk. Please stop ignoring me. Lila is devastated. Why won't you explain your side? Explain my side, as if I hadn't spent hours trying to, as if he had listened to even one word. I deleted every message without replying. Not out of spite, but because I finally understood something I should have known years ago. Marcus had never been my partner. He'd been a man who liked the idea of having one. But when things got hard, he didn't stand beside me. He stepped away. 2 weeks after everything fell apart, something unexpected happened at the shop. A client walked in. A tall, dark-haired man wearing a slate gray blazer over a simple t-shirt. Handsome in a quiet, unassuming way. Confident without trying. He smiled politely and extended a hand. Hi, I'm Elliot. I called yesterday about the '65 Impala restoration. I shook his hand. Right, Sarah. Good to meet you. He looked around the shop, at the cars, the unfinished projects, the controlled chaos. This place is incredible, he said. You built all this? From scratch. He gave a small, genuine smile. That's impressive. It wasn't flirtation, it wasn't pity, it was respect. For the first time in weeks, I felt seen, not judged, not doubted, not accused, just seen. We talked about the car, its history, its original paint, the upgrades he wanted. He asked real questions, listened, understood the craft. Before he left, he paused at the door. If you ever need anything, help finding parts, towing, whatever, let me know. I've got good connections. Thanks, I said honestly. He nodded, then walked out. I didn't know it then, but that small moment would matter later. Because not long after Elliot left, someone else walked into my life. His ex-girlfriend. Her name was Sabrina, and she carried herself like every room belonged to her. Tall, sharp gaze, flawless makeup. She eyed the shop like it wasn't good enough for her shoes. Are you Sarah? She asked. I stiffened. Yes? She tilted her head, lips curling. I'm Sabrina. I heard you met my ex. A beat. Don't get any ideas. I stared at her. I think you're in the wrong place if you're looking for drama. She smirked. Oh, honey, drama finds me. She left without another word. And just like that, another woman stepped into my story. Jealous, territorial, watching me like she saw a competition before I even thought of Elliot as anything more than a client. Between Lila's obsession, Marcus's betrayal, and now Sabrina's warnings, I felt like I'd woken up in someone else's life. But this time I wouldn't be blindsided. I wouldn't be gentle. I wouldn't be naive. Because whether they realized it or not, everyone who doubted me, used me, lied about me, or tried to replace me was about to see exactly what it looks like when I fight back. The call came on a Tuesday afternoon, an ordinary day at the shop. I was elbow deep polishing the chrome trim on a 72 Nova when my phone began buzzing nonstop. At first I ignored it. When it vibrated again and again and again, I wiped my hands on a rag and glanced at the screen. Marcus's mother, 4 missed calls, now a 5th incoming. My stomach tightened. She had barely spoken to me since I left the house. The last time she did, she sounded cold, formal, distant, like she was reading off lines someone had fed her. But now her name kept flashing like an alarm. I answered. Hello? Her voice broke immediately. Sarah, oh God, I am so sorry. I froze, not the words I expected. What happened? I demanded. It's Lila, she whispered. She confessed. My pulse pounded in my ears. Confessed what? There was a shaky inhale on the other end. She lied, she said. She admitted everything. The messages, the story, all of it. She said she made it all up because she couldn't stand to see you and Marcus together. My knees nearly buckled. She told me she loves him, Marcus's mother continued, voice trembling. She said she's been in love with him for years. She said she thought if she destroyed your marriage, he would finally choose her. The chrome rag slipped from my hands. She admitted she used an app to create fake text messages, she said. She admitted she never came to your house that night. She admitted everything. I couldn't breathe. Where is Marcus? I finally managed. He doesn't believe me, she whispered. He thinks I misunderstood. He thinks she was emotional. He thinks, her voice cracked. He thinks I'm overreacting. He refuses to accept she lied. Of course he did. Of course he couldn't see past her manipulation. Does he know you're calling me? I asked. No, she said quickly. But he will. You need to prepare yourself. He's going to reach out. He'll want you back. But Sarah, you deserve better than what he's done to you. It was the first time since this nightmare began that someone from his side spoke to me with honesty, not judgment. I thanked her, hung up, and sat down heavily on a rolling stool. The shop blurred around me. The smell of oil, rubber, dust, all of it felt distant. She confessed. She confessed. The words looped in my head like a broken belt spinning around an engine pulley. All this time, all the pain, all the doubt, all the betrayal, because of her obsession, because of his blindness. My phone buzzed again, a barrage of messages. Marcus, we need to talk. Please call me. I heard what my mom thinks she heard. There's been a misunderstanding. Please, Sarah, I'm begging you. I turned the phone face down. I didn't owe him a damn thing. That night, Vincent called. Marcus's lawyer reached out, he said. They want to schedule a meeting. Marcus wants to reconcile. I let out a humorless laugh. Of course he does. He's expecting an apology from Lila to fix everything, Vincent said. He thinks you two can just move forward. Forward? I repeated. After he kicked me out? After he threatened me with the police? After he believed a woman who forged evidence? Vincent exhaled. As your attorney, I need to ask, do you want to hear him out? No, I said, immediately, unequivocally. Schedule the meeting, but it's to finalize the divorce. Vincent didn't argue. Friday afternoon, at the house, he said. But Sarah, be prepared. It's going to be emotional. I'm beyond emotional, I said quietly. I'm done. Friday felt like a funeral. Vincent and I pulled into the driveway. My heart pounded as I looked at the house. My house, now foreign, hollow, tainted. Marcus's car was there. So was another one. A familiar one. Lila's. I nearly laughed. Of course she was here. Of course she'd try one last time to manipulate the narrative. Do you want me to handle this? Vincent asked. No, I said softly. Let her try. I'm not afraid of her anymore. We walked inside. Marcus sat on the couch, eyes red, posture brittle. The moment he saw me, tears welled. Sarah, thank God, we can fix— Stop, Vincent said sharply. She's here to finalize terms, not reconcile. Marcus looked at me, desperate. Sarah, please. But before I could respond, a voice came from behind him. I just want to talk to her. Leela, standing in the hallway, mascara smudged, face blotchy from crying, hands trembling. The audacity made my jaw clench. Vincent stepped forward. This is inappropriate. You need to leave. Lila ignored him and looked straight at me. I'm so sorry, she whispered. I didn't mean for any of this to happen. I was confused and scared and— Save it, I said flatly. Marcus blinked at her. Lila, maybe you should— No, I cut in. Let her talk. Apparently she has things she wants to confess. Lila's eyes filled with panic. She hadn't expected to be cornered. I just— She glanced at Marcus, seeking protection he could no longer give. I love you, she choked out. I always have. I couldn't let her take you away. Marcus's face went white. Sarah didn't steal anything from you, I said, voice steady. You poisoned him against his own wife because you wanted him. Lila shook her head frantically. No, he needs me. We've always had a connection, and you don't understand how hard it's been watching you. Watching me what? I asked. Exist? Marcus stood horrified. Lila, tell me you didn't lie. She looked at him with desperate, obsessive devotion. Marcus, everything I did for us. There is no us, he said, voice cracking. Her face twisted, anger, grief, delusion, all fighting for control. You ruined everything, she hissed at me suddenly. If you just left him sooner, none of this would have happened. Vincent stepped between us. That's enough. Leave before we involve law enforcement. Something in her snapped. She grabbed her purse, stormed toward the door, and threw one last venomous glare at Marcus. You'll regret this, she spat. Both of you. Then she left, and the silence she left behind was deafening. Marcus sank to the couch, sobbing into his hands. I didn't move. He looked up at me, shattered. Sarah, please, I was wrong. I know that now. Please don't do this. We can get help, therapy, anything. I'll do anything. I stood perfectly still, calm, steady, empty. Marcus, I said quietly, I begged you to listen to me. I gave you evidence. I gave you truth, and you threw me out anyway. He shook his head violently. I was manipulated, and I was betrayed. His sobbing grew desperate. Please, Sarah, I love you. I hope, I said gently, you find someone you'll actually trust, because that person isn't me. Vincent placed the divorce papers on the table. I signed them with a steady hand. Then I walked out of my house, my old life, without looking back. Marcus called my name, voice breaking. But I didn't stop, I didn't pause, I didn't hesitate. Because for the first time in months, I wasn't leaving something. I was walking towards something better. The day the divorce was finalized was strangely quiet. No dramatic storm clouds, no symbolic thunder, just an ordinary Wednesday, warm sunlight spilling through the blinds of my new apartment. A day like any other, except it wasn't. Except it meant freedom. The courthouse clerk slid the stamped papers across the counter toward me. Final, she said without looking up. Final. The word didn't hit me like a punch. It didn't even sting. It felt like unlocking a door I'd been trapped behind for years without realizing it. I walked out of the courthouse with my shoulders square, my breathing steady. I didn't call anyone. I didn't announce it online. I didn't check my phone, even though it buzzed repeatedly with messages I knew were from Marcus. I just drove straight to the shop. The new expansion was nearly complete. The construction crew was tearing down the connecting wall between the two units, sunlight pouring in through rough openings where drywall used to be. The smell of fresh lumber and engine oil mixed together, a scent that felt like home. Danny waved from across the shop. You're early today, boss. Big day, I said simply. He didn't ask, he knew. The Challenger sat in the center of the bay, polished to a deep, glossy burgundy with black trim. My masterpiece. My therapy. My reminder that I could still build something beautiful with my own hands, even after someone tried to tear my life apart. I ran my fingers along the hood. The car gleamed under the lights. Quiet, powerful, mine. Chris approached, holding a clipboard. You ready to dyno test it again? I tweaked the timing like you asked. Yeah, I said, smiling faintly. Let's fire her up. When the engine roared to life, the whole shop vibrated. Deep, clean, powerful, 385 horses ready to run. Chris grinned at me like a proud kid. Sounds like justice. I laughed for the first time in weeks. Yeah, it does. And just like that, the weight on my chest loosened a little more. Later that afternoon, the shop door opened and Elliot walked in. Smooth as always, blazer over a white tee, a man who made confidence look effortless. Hope I'm not interrupting, he said. His voice was warm enough to make the back of my neck tingle. Not at all, I said. Impala parts came in this morning. Want to take a look? He stepped closer to the Challenger first, eyes scanning it appreciatively. It's incredible, he murmured. I have never seen craftsmanship like this. You should be charging triple. I chuckled. Say that louder. My team needs to hear it. He glanced toward the office. You free for a coffee later? I hesitated, not because I didn't want to go, but because something in me still felt fragile, tender. Coffee's safe, he added gently, reading my silence. Just two people who appreciate old cars. I couldn't help smiling. Yeah, coffee works. He nodded, and for a moment neither of us moved. There was something steady, grounding, trustworthy in his gaze, something I hadn't seen in anyone in a long time. But peace never lasts uninterrupted. As Elliot walked out, someone else walked in. Sabrina. Perfect makeup, perfect hair, perfect tilt of the chin, like she floated instead of walked. She eyed Elliot leaving, then turned to me with a smirk. Getting cozy with my leftovers? I crossed my arms. Did you need something? She clicked her tongue. Relax. Elliot and I were never serious. He's boring. Then why are you here? She stepped closer, lowering her voice. Because I like to know who he's talking to, and because women like you, she gestured around the shop, don't usually end up with men like him. It was the exact kind of poison Lila used. The exact tone, the exact insecurity disguised as superiority. But I wasn't the same woman anymore. Sabrina, I said calmly, go home. Whatever you're trying to stir up, I'm not interested. She scoffed. You think you're better than me? No, I said. I think I'm done with people trying to control things that don't belong to them. She blinked, thrown off for a moment. Then she huffed and strutted out like a villain in a bad soap opera. Elliot didn't return that day, but later that evening, my phone buzzed. Elliot. Don't mind her. She's dramatic. Coffee still on for tomorrow? I stared at the screen for a moment, then typed back. Yeah, tomorrow works. A few weeks passed. My shop expanded. My client list doubled. The construction finished. The Challenger looked showroom ready. And slowly, quietly, Elliot entered my life. Not as a whirlwind, not as a replacement, but as something steady, something real. We took it slow. Coffee, lunch breaks, swapping car stories, talking about business, talking about life without touching old wounds. One afternoon, after I spent hours buffing the Challenger's interior, he stopped by with 2 iced coffees. You look like you need this, he said, handing me one. You have no idea, I said. He swept his eyes over the car. You planning to show it at Barrett-Jackson next year? My heart skipped. That was the dream. You should. I shrugged. Life got in the way. He stepped closer, voice soft but firm. You've rebuilt engines from scratch. You survived lies that could have ruined you. You walked away from someone who didn't deserve you. You think you can't handle a car auction? I stared at him. No one had ever spoken to me like that before. With belief, with admiration, with zero agenda. Sarah, he said, you were made for bigger things than the people who tried to break you. And standing there, covered in grease and sundust from the shop lights, I believed him. For the first time in years, I believed in me. A month after the divorce was finalized, Marcus showed up at the shop. I saw his reflection in the glass before I heard his voice. He looked thinner, older, broken in a way that wasn't my burden anymore. Sarah, he said, voice trembling, can we talk? I stepped outside, but not close enough for him to mistake this for nostalgia. What do you want? I'm sorry. I was stupid, blind, weak. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just needed you to know that I see everything clearly now. I nodded once, slowly. I hope you learned from this. He swallowed. Do you ever think we... No, I said quietly but firmly. He closed his eyes like the word physically hurt. I waited a beat then. I'm happier now, Marcus, and I hope one day you will be too. But we're done. He nodded, tears slipping down his cheeks. He didn't argue. He didn't beg. He didn't try to hold on to something already gone. He just said, "I'm sorry," one last time, and walked away. I didn't watch him leave. I stepped back into my shop, my sanctuary, my future, my fresh start. Elliot was inside, leaning against the counter, holding 2 coffees again. He raised one in my direction. "Thought you might need this." I smiled, a real one, a peaceful one. For the first time in months, maybe years, everything felt right. I wasn't rebuilding a marriage. I wasn't proving myself to someone who doubted me. I wasn't defending myself against lies. I was building something new, something honest, something mine. And as I rested my hand on the gleaming hood of my Challenger, engine humming softly beneath, I realized something. It took losing everything to finally understand I never truly had it in the first place. But now I had myself, and that was more than enough.